long as I got you. Yeah. All my children tell me everything is gonna be alright. I know it will. Be alright. Oh, yeah. Be
alright. What up, man?
What's up?
Oh, you're not gonna sing? You're not gonna sing?
Apparently, there's some people who like to comment on my abilities. Therefore, I am on a singing strike.
Ah, man. The fans are gonna miss out, man. Everybody looks forward to you singing the intro, you know.
None for you. All right, man. Long as I got you.
There it is.
Hey! Can't hold me down. Can't stop.
Welcome to the Sabbath Morning Show. Welcome to the Sabbath Morning Show, everybody. While we're your host, Chuck, and that is Mr. Zig over there. And we are here another week. We made it through.
We made survived.
It. Exactly.
Hey, wait a minute. Did Swoop remix that song too?
I don't think so.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I heard, and it might just be a rumor. I heard that if y'all don't know, we need to throw him up on the screen. If y'all don't know about Swoop, you need to know. This brother is super talented. But his music is amazing and it's so uplifted. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. And I mean, just from he does this thing on Instagram called Swoop Loops. And he did one of Charles's favorite. We got a Christmas ditty up there. Exactly. I'm gonna say every last one of the ones he's done did has been my favorite. But I wanted to know, did he do We Made It? No, he did. We're Blessed in the City, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, he did one of them. Anyways, he did it. Y'all go check him out. Swoop. So that's SWOOPE on Instagram. Check him out.
Swoop on Instagram. But yeah, welcome to the show where we're just two Christian brothers trying to make sense of it all. We got a lot to talk about. This is another Christian State of Mind for December 20th or 19th. Sorry, I'm looking into the future. December 19th. What topics we got going on today?
The future. Well, today we definitely want to shout out you. Thank you for joining us. So we got y'all joining us today.
Appreciate it.
Then on top of that, we're going to talk about, it's vaccine season.
Vaccine season.
And we got vaccine season. So it's been released into the wild and people out here getting it. And then we got a somber topic, kind of, but a little bit serious. Talk about the death penalty. And then we'll discuss witnessing.
Yes, sir. Witnessing. Looking forward to it.
So, it's definitely, it should be a topic that all Christians subscribe to, think about.
Yes, sir.
We'll see. We'll see.
But before we get into it, we're going to start off with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, Go ahead. Heavenly Father, thank you, dear Lord, for bringing us here another day. Be with us now as we talk about all the craziness happening in the world, but know you are ultimately in control. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Where to begin? COVID vaccines, man.
COVID. So, the vaccine's been released. Pfizer got their emergency usage from the FDA. The FDA did approve it for use. Late last night, Moderna got their approval.
Correct. Yep.
And people across the country, like even my hospital was on the news. And so, and with them interviewing doctors and nurses about being the first in the facilities to get the vaccine. So they, it's definitely a low distribution. So they, they weren't able to make a lot of it. They were only to make so much.
Right.
Unfortunately, the United States, when it comes to Pfizer, had an opportunity for 100 million more doses, but somebody dropped the ball. And,
what happened?
The administration, I don't know what they was doing. I think somebody fell asleep at the wheel. And so, to be honest, because they interviewed the people from Pfizer and they were asking like, so how many doses are you making? And It was like, well, we're getting ready to ship to the United States. We're getting ready to ship to Europe, to all these other places, all these other people. They were like, we're running at full capacity. And they were like, well, how much is the US getting? And they was like, 40 million. But yeah, and they was like, well, wait, 40 million. That's it. And so it came out that Pfizer offered, ahead of time. So they did put America first. And they said, hey, we want to push you to the front of the line. Do you want to add an extra order? And then they came back, I think, a couple times, and they never got a response. And so, that's a business. So, I mean, I get it.
It definitely is a business, but the impact, though, for the people, man, it's interesting. They've been showing a lot of photo ops of people taking the vaccine this week for those in the medical industry.
That's intentional.
There's definitely been just discussion I hear from even firefighters, considering to take it and maybe even being forced to take it. And even at my job, I'm an engineer, and there's a discussion even in the town hall this week about maybe the more people take it, the more of us that can come back to the office. So no one's saying at my job that, we have to take it. It's just being promoted that way. That the vaccine's here. So if you take it, we can get back to normal.
And I think I think you're right. There's the optics. They're definitely pushing this out to the forefront. And, there's a lot of misinformation for one, a lot of miseducation. Secondly, about like how vaccines work, how they're developed. We was talking about this last night. And everybody's like, well, how did they do it so fast? I don't trust it. Right. And I think there's other reasons not to trust it. But, just like, I don't know 10 years ago, we were still playing CDs. Right. And it's like, things come up, 10 years ago, people were still writing letters, for the most part.
I got a written letter the other day in the mail. I was surprised. I was like, look at this. Look at this.
I know he was like, what? He was confused, probably. Like, what do I do with it? Can I put it in the computer?
Right.
And so how did they get it so fast? They used the CRISPR gene editing machine or process, which basically breaks down any genetic structure and allows them to like break it down, reconfigure it. When I think of it, I think of like those sci-fi movies where people's like in the room and the whole room is the computer and they like expand. And then just, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's not how it worked, but in my mind, that's how it worked. So some good things have come from this process. There's a woman and you see the
What's
comment.
that now?
What is male?
That's hilarious. Now everybody knows what mail is apparently,
but look, kids won't know. Like, what is a letter?
Right.
What is a VHS? So, but back to the CRISPR. So
yeah,
they've been using it and it's been going really well. So well, in fact, that there's a woman in Georgia who's been cured of sickle cell. Like, it wasn't that she had the trait; she had full on sickle cell. And if you don't know what that is, you might not be Black, which is an accurate thing to say. It's very, very rare for white people to get sickle cell.
But it is very, very a high rate within the Black community.
Absolutely.
I would say almost everyone knows somebody that has sickle cell.
And if you don't have sickle cell, it's very likely that you have the trait.
You have the trait at the very least.
Which means you have a high risk of passing on the trait to your kids. And if your spouse has the trait, you know, I forget how the genetics class work. You know how it was like
biology.
Yeah.
I don't know. Table, genetics table.
And so not only was she cured, but eight other people have been, and they've been monitoring her for a little over a year. And they interviewed her last week actually on NPR, and she's like, "Yo, it's been great. It's fantastic. I can play with my kids and not have to worry about being in pain or, So that same process that they use to unlock sickle cell is what they use to unlock COVID-19. And so they've actually had the vaccine for since March. So it only took a little bit of time for the process to work, to spit out it's like a math. As an engineer, you should be able to appreciate that, right? Math always works, right? It's not math that's wrong, it's the people using math.
Well, and I think that's part of the concern with the vaccine is the people, of course. I think there's definitely people who are just anti-vaxxers, but I think this doesn't fall into that category necessarily for most people. Like, I'm an anti-vaxxer, therefore I don't want the COVID. I think most people are just questioning the validity of it. It's like, hey, that came out a little fast. How many test trials did you run? What are the side effects? How long
40,000. 40,000.
How long has the trials been ran? These are the type of questions people are wanting to understand, and it's fair. And I think there is some prudence in being a little bit hesitant, and just watching and observing. And at least from my side, I would want to see some of the maybe midterm effects, maybe not long term, because I'm not necessarily trying to wait 5 years to see, but maybe 6 months, 1 year to see. Okay, people aren't growing a third leg, so maybe it's okay to take. And it's interesting. Everybody always wants to know what the church has to say about things, and actually they put out a statement this week on immunization. It wasn't just on the COVID, but it was just on immunization, and they basically said it's up to the person. They say we are not the conscience of the individual member and recognize individual choices. These are exercised by the individual. The church. The choice not to be immunized is not and should not be seen as dogma nor doctrine of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So they are leaving it in the hands of the people and allowing you to have freedom to make your decision. And that's one of the things I like about our church is there's freedom within it. There's freedom for Republicans as well as Democrats because we're all one in Jesus.
Says we value the health and safety of the population, which includes the maintenance of herd immunity. Immunity. Yeah, immunity.
There you go.
It's kind of hard to say something. Immunity. So the interesting thing about herd immunity, and I'm not going to talk politics. So this show, we're not talking politics. But I think one of the people in the I forget what department they work from. But bro, they in here talking about they was trying to force herd immunity, and they said just let people get sick. Just let them get sick.
Well, remember Europe, not Europe, but the UK was on that tip originally. Until the prime minister got it, and he was like, "Yo, we can't do this." That was the realest thing. He was like, "You know what? I was tripping, y'all."
He was like, "I was wrong. I was wrong." Like, yo, no, we can't do it. And the crazy thing is, like, when people in the White House get it, which is bogus, bro, because like they get like super treated. It's like the best doctors in the world, like on staff, like. So it's like somebody from. I know they had mentioned somebody went to go visit the White House, and while they were meeting with the president, like some people came into the room, was like, "Y'all gotta go," and snatched them out and was like, they tested positive for COVID, which I was like, oh, it was the system worked, and again they got treated by the White House doctors, and so it was like, so I'm like, yo, everybody ain't got that. So
everybody doesn't have access, right?
Yeah. So when they're like, and I think that's privilege, bro. That's that's like the privilege we've been screaming about for years. Like people aren't treated the same. And it's not like a black and white thing. It's a it's a socioeconomic thing. It was kind of like, look what you got. And then you can't be like, yeah, what's wrong with COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the issue, right? It's not so much that they have access to it. It's more so that they have access to it and are not taking it seriously for other people who don't have as quick as access to it. I mean, up until I would say the last few months, getting COVID tests was just hard, right? It's definitely a period. At least now you can get a COVID test, and then you can get the rapid COVID test a little bit, easier. Like that's available. Whereas before, they were just like, if you think you have it, just stay home.
Stay home, right?
Take some Robitussin and call it a day.
But it's funny you say that too, because I had a colleague who has a son that's away at college. Mm-hmm. And so they were saying every time he comes home, they told him, like, you need to get a COVID test before you come home. I think that's reasonable. Which is interesting for their household too, because like they have one of those split households where half the house is Republican, other half of the house is Democratic. Mm. And so, but they all agreed, like, nah, you got to get tested before you come home. The issue here is the kid has been home twice now. Mm-hmm. So, obviously it's Christmas coming and holidays. And they said, all right, well, make sure you get your test before you come. And he said, I can't get one. They told me I got to pay. Mm. And so apparently, depending on your insurance, you can only get 2 tests. So it's still an issue of access. So I was under the impression, like, if you needed one, you could just go get it, and the government was paying for it. I thought they was fronting everybody tests.
Yeah,
but apparently not.
Right. And that's definitely makes things difficult. And I was just thinking, though, just looking back at COVID, right? I mean, this whole year, we went from only a few people having it to just the whole outbreak to not really understanding it to now we kind of understand, like, there's a process. Everyone's familiar with quarantining, and now we're getting quarantine fatigue. It's just been interesting to see the ups and downs of it. And as a Christian, what is our kind of takeaway with this? Now that we got this vaccine, are we just looking at blue skies from here on out? What's kind of our role now as Christians through this new phase of COVID?
I think COVID was standing, and one of the conversations that I was having is, I think about how people, will say stuff like, how did God let this happen? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But at the same time, and I think I said this before, right? God has been, from what we read in the Bible, God is holding back, right? Because if the wages of sin is death, right? And that death affected even the earth, and its full capacity is being held back by God. When he just kind of lets a little bit, like turns the tap just a little bit to say, in order for me to do what I need to do, I gotta let this go. And so, but understand that when I let it go, I'm gonna have, I will come for you, but when I let it go, something's gonna happen. It's gonna be bad.
Right. There's consequences.
Right. And so this little bit of what we're experiencing, and again, like, that sin still comes from Satan, right? And I think people just don't give Satan his due.
In that regard.
Right? It's like, yo, why did God let this happen? Like, no. Like, give Satan his credit. Like, he deserves that. Like, come on, man. Satan, you did that, bro. Like,
yeah. But I think people are just like, why did God allow Satan to do that? And I think that's the real argument behind it. I
get it too. But I think, my takeaway is more like, and I think that's where the scripture come in too, right? Well, what the devil meant for evil, God, turned it for my good. And so there are things in which, and there's tragedies that happen and horrible things that happen. And we'll talk a little bit more about this too. But there is an opportunity for God to be revealed in those tragedies. And it's kind of, and even if it's, you know, for some people, it might be the fact that you went through this thing and it didn't take you out. Right. Because, you know, when I think about, you know, I did, you know, a lot of mental health work, and, you know, I've seen some really sad cases where people were forced into a tragic situation and they didn't come out the other side. Right. You know, it's kind of like the person is there, they're physically, but they're not there. And
that's 100% true.
And so, you know, how trauma and tragedy and, you know, all these things affect us. You know, I mean, even for me, like military, you know, 9/11, like that was huge. And, you know, I was in Hawaii at the time, you know, a quarter ways across the world. And, you know, people were, you know, everyone in the world was affected by that, some more than others. And if the closer you got to New York, the more you were affected, or if you had people in New York, right? And so, you know, how people came out of those experiences are testimonies. But then there's still some good that happened, right? Some people were able to do charity. Some people were able to give back. Some people were, all these things that revealed the nature and character of God through us. And I think, you know, I think that's the only thing. And God's given us an opportunity. Like, yep, COVID was forced on us, but look what we've been able to do. I think churches have expanded exponentially, or at least have been given an opportunity to show, hey, the building isn't what made you who you were. Right.
Right. The building wasn't where your relationship with God was, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's still, and I guess one of our future topics too. No, we don't talk about that today. So so it's all tied together.
It's all tied together. So last question on this topic, man. Should the church make people take vaccines to come in? If you have a vaccine.
This ain't Scientology.
Listen, man, I want to know I'm safe. So if you have the vaccine, that means I'm safe. Now, you know, that's probably very unlikely, to your point, to happen, that we would make anyone take a vaccine. But what is interesting, if a person has a vaccine, should it be, and we reopen, would they be required to wear a mask? Because I had the vaccine, so I don't need to wear a mask.
But you know what? I would say yes, because I guarantee you there's going to be people out there be like, yeah, I got the vaccine.
I got paperwork. I ain't wearing a mask.
Yeah, I got it. I think there's going to be, I mean, just because their evil exists in the world, man, I think people are going to try to take advantage of other people. There's going to be some story. You just know it always happens, where somebody's going to be like, yeah, man, hey, I got the vaccine. I got that hot vaccine, bro. 200, you can get it early.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, same thing happening. Like, look at this PlayStation 5, right? All the scams that's going on out here. And, you know, somebody paid like this large sum of money for it, and they got some bricks.
Yeah, man.
And so
there's definitely going to be hustlers, huh?
Yeah, evil is out there.
Dude, be on guard. Be wise as serpents.
Absolutely.
So let us know in the comments your thoughts on it, your thoughts on the matter. Are you okay with the vaccine? Are you okay with people in the church taking the vaccine? All that and in between. We want to hear from you. So, what else we got, P? What else we got, Z? What's next?
Oh man. So I think this one's a little bit little trickier. You know, we over the last 17 years, the federal government has abstained from executing.
Before we move on, Sandra says he already has a bootleg vaccine on deck.
Like, what's your 2 for 20? I get 2 because you need 2 doses, right? You got, is it 2 for 20? What we doing?
Is dude, man, be on the lookout for the scammers, right, for the hustlers.
I'm telling you, they go.
It's
where opportunity exists, there will be a hustler.
But now you were saying about this other topic. What was you trying to say?
So the federal government has abstained from executions, and 17 years has not been a federal execution in 17 years. And last year, the administration moved to restart that program. I think it was July 2019, but for whatever reason, they haven't done it. And so, no, actually, there was some court. So the courts kind of got involved, and they started moving forward this year. So far, they have, I want to say 11 people. No, 10 people. 10 people have been executed since July of this year.
Oh, wow.
And so, which is interesting too, because over the last 130 years, when you're in a presidential transition period, and I don't know if they count like the election cycle, they halt elections, right? Because they don't want it to seem political or like I guess that's my take on it. I think that maybe they did it that way so that a president that's moving out don't execute people who's trying to get at them. Maybe that's, I don't know.
Sure.
But
yeah.
So the point is they haven't done it. And one of the high profile cases of an execution happened last week with Brandon Bernard. So for those who don't know or haven't heard, this brother was part of a gang, a group. They called it a gang. But where he was an accomplice to murder for two youth ministers.
Yeah. They gave him a ride because they asked for one. This group of kids, the two ministers gave him a ride, and they basically took advantage of him and robbed them and kept him in the trunk of the car for I think the whole day, basically, before
9 hours.
Yeah, before they murdered them.
Well, and that's the part of the case that's interesting, right? Which is so the forensic information, right? Just like the CRISPR machine we was talking about, right? Science advances, and we know more about how things work now than we did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? So this was about 20 years ago that this happened, and they were trying to not get him off. They were basically trying to present new information.
Right. And they're trying to say that he wasn't the one who actually did the murder, because I think even during the trial, because he had lit the car on fire after the murder took place, there was a belief that perhaps that the female minister that was killed was still partially alive, and actually that led to her final demise. Right. But it wasn't exactly clear if that was the case or not, especially like you said, as they look back into the forensic evidence.
Yeah, his co-conspirator was executed in September, and then the other two people, they didn't get the death penalty. So there was, I think in total there was maybe 4-5 people total involved, but only 2 got the death penalty, and they are no longer with us. So there's some interesting things about his case. I think, I'm gonna read what the family of the victims had said, that they basically, they said, "I pray that Brandon has accepted Christ as his savior, because if he has, Todd and Stacy will welcome him into heaven with love and forgiveness." Right. So, but they also expressed and I think they talked to the president and was saying that they were thankful and happy and grateful that he moved through with this execution.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where we have our intersection, right?
Well, I think there's a couple intersections, right? The defendant, the person, Mr. Bernard, was a black male, and I think Sandra was talking about the number of people who were black who have been on death row and who have been executed. But then also on a more personal and a more even intersected point, he was Adventist. So that's on a couple of levels we have this connection to him, and so there's been a lot of discussion. What should the church have done more? What is the church's stance on the death penalty? And there are we have answers to that. The actually a few years back in 2017, not the church itself, but a subsection of the church. It's basically a research institute within the church. Actually, did a deep theological study and presented, from a biblical point of view, the role of the death penalty. And basically, it says the Adventists believe that violence and capital punishment have no place within the church. In other words, it's not the task of the church to take human life. So there's not a supportive nature of the death penalty within the church. And I think, of course, that makes sense. It's not what we're in the business of. We're in the business of saving lives. And this Brandon was not the first Adventist in recent years to face the death penalty. There was another guy back in 2019, Donnie Johnson, who became Adventist while he was in prison. And he had been in prison he had been in death row for over 30 years. And actually he became an elder within the church in 2008. And so, it begs the question, what is our response when we see our fellow Adventists, facing the death penalty?
I mean, I think part of it, man, is, and I thought about this, and the guy he was executed on Thursday. Mm-hmm. The other guy in an unrelated case was executed on Friday. Now, bro, like this is some real stuff, because I was thinking about how the guy who was executed on Friday, he killed like a 2-year-old kid, his 2-year-old kid, right? And it was gruesome, right? I don't even want to go into details. Like I felt, since becoming a father, like these stories about kids and abuse, like, bro, they hit hard. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, oh. And so, so this idea is like, well, what would you do? Well, personally, I would probably be in trouble myself, right? I wouldn't.
Sure. Right.
I don't know. But again, we don't know unless we're in that situation. But the thing that really got to me was looking at this from the Christian perspective, where you have the same type of people who are pro-life, mm-hmm. are also pro-execution. And I'm like, how does that live in the same space, right? And it's, it's like, no, we are all about the sanctity of life, right? Life is sacred. Right. And they believe it begins in one place and not until, but they got like an asterisk in there. It was like, unless you commit a crime for which we think you should be killed for. Right. And it's like,
well, I mean, there's I think a part of that has to do with forgiveness. And actually, we got to bring Dr. Bigger back on to talk about forgiveness, because he has such a crazy story of forgiveness. Right. But the forgiveness aspect is like what you said. I think people are pro-life, and it's like we're saying, until we get in that situation, we don't know how we would, react. I want to say that, I'm not pro-death penalty, but if something happens to my kid where they're murdered in a gruesome way, maybe that triggers me to support it. And I think that's what some people fall into, where they're pro-life, but when it happens on that personal level, they're like, well, somebody needs to pay for it. And since we have laws that this is the full extent of punishment, that's what you're going to get. And it's, it's a difficult, I think, situation. I know me personally, I'm not for the death penalty. I think there's, for me, if you give someone, life, I think that's the same, right? Life behind bars that's not really life, right? So I think for me, that's severe of a punishment enough. But I know for other people, they don't necessarily feel that way.
The other thing too is he was 17, right?
So he was 18 when he committed
17 or 18.
18. So
he was still a minor at the time, right?
That's I don't know if he was a minor at 18.
I thought they called him a minor.
Nah, he was 18.
Well, this is the laws for being a minor or an adult is different for every state.
Understood, but 18, I think better than to burn people up in a car.
We're not talking about whether a person knows better or not. We're just talking about the law. You like, nah, bro, he knew better. And I agree. He do that. And you know, I think what happened too was, and I saw something interesting that said his execution didn't just kill him, but killed the idea that people could change.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the same thing with that Donnie Johnson case. Like, I mean, he had murdered his wife, and you know, he was sentenced to death, but he found Christ. Another fellow inmate witnessed to him, and we'll talk about witnessing later in the show. But he became Adventist and changed his life, became an elder. And so, where's the redemption? And you know, we've been talking about that with not even just with these type of cases, but even with the Me Too, the Church Too movement. When these, you know, people in power do these, you know, terrible things, or just in general, when people do terrible things, the church isn't always, and especially society, but even the church is not always behind this whole redemption story. It's like, look, you did this thing, you done. We're gonna put you away, or you know, and out of here, you out of here.
And
you
how
canceled.
do we bring? Yep.
And so how do we redeem them, right?
Absolutely. And so it's like, how do we, you know, is there a pathway back for these people? And a lot of people would just say no. Right. Which is interesting because if we look through the lens of the Bible, all of it is sin. Right. And so it's kind of like, you know, when we talk about true judgment, you know, I'm as guilty as they are, and Christ died for all of us, you know, and his, you know, the Bernard case is really interesting, not just because he's Adventist, but he did change his life. Right. He absolutely changed his life and was absolutely remorseful. And I think the evidence of whether someone is remorseful for something they did is if they change. And that he like doubled over, right? So he recognized, and I think he said immediately, I knew what I did was wrong. And from that point, kind of moved on and changed his life. And helped other people change their lives as well.
And we're getting some comments, you know, lovely. I think there's a pathway back, just not out of jail for heinous crimes. We got one here. The thief was on the cross and was redeemed, and need to think that approach, that there's no one beyond saving. And I definitely agree with that.
And even what the family said, right?
Being, you know, she was echoing what you're saying about being pro-life and pro-execution. They're in direct contradiction of each other.
Absolutely. So he did apologize, and the family said the apology and remorse helped very much heal my heart. But they were like praising his death. Like, I think, and I'm like, I can't, you know, I can't like reconcile that myself, right? Again, not being, you know, we don't know. But I'm just thinking about the idea of it. And so, and then for them to say like, yeah, it helped. And I forgive them, but I wanted them dead. Like, it's like,
yeah. And I think that goes to the levels of forgiveness, right? It's like, yeah, I forgive you, but I still want some type of retribution. And,
yeah,
you know, and I think we've been talking about the theme of justice, you know, throughout this whole first season of the show. And this is, you know, a level to it. You know, what does justice really look like? And, you know, we've been talking about it from the idea of racism and injustice toward different groups of people. But what happens when someone is guilty of a crime? What is justice supposed to actually, you know, look like?
And I'll tell you, man, I'm immediately thinking that I don't think Black people really know what justice is.
Black people or all people?
No, I'm saying if it's
all
on
people,
if it's
all
on
people don't know.
If it's right. But if we're looking at it on the spectrum, Black people are the least to receive what we would consider justice. You know, and I think that's I mean, even thinking about his case, man, when you think about like look at Dylan Roof.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, dude got a Happy Meal on his way to jail.
Yeah, and you know, I went to a concert several years back, and it was the same concert you and I went to, the Andy Mineo concert. Propaganda was talking about it because that's when these police charges were starting to tick up. And the thing that stuck with me when he said that was, you know, people don't see each other in the image of God. Therefore, there's not a connection to you. Therefore, I can treat you any type of way because I don't see me in you, and I don't see God in you. So I'm gonna treat you like there is no God in you.
Right.
And I, you know, that you know that sticks with me, because even in the case of Brandon, the jurors, you know, didn't look like him, right? They were all white. You know, they're different ages, different genders, but there weren't any black people on the jury. So again, there's different ways we separate each other, right? We were even talking about it at work, like engineers we look at other people. Oh, you're not an engineer, right?
Designers,
right? You're a designer. You're some styling guy, right? So I think there's levels to it, right? But especially with race, it's more evident, especially with the background of this country and how people are raised. I can see directly, immediately, oh, you dark skinned, right? Even within the black community, like, oh, you light skinned, you dark skinned, right? There's this immediate. As soon as I see you, I make some judgment call accordingly,
yep.
And there's just some natural bias that we tend to have, and we talk about change. I think that has to be changed within us so that we can see, the image of God in people. And what's even sad, we see it in the comments here, is that the jurors have wanted to change their choice.
They did. Yeah. So once they presented the new information, the jury, the members of the jury said that there were at least 5 of them that said they wouldn't have made those same decisions. They still would have, ruled to hold them accountable, but they definitely wouldn't have
given the
death. And again, it's like, we know how the justice system works. So it's like if me, you, and Sandru, out hanging out somewhere and we get arrested for doing something, they're gonna be like, yeah, it was gang activity.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that's how they're gonna present the case. And honestly, that's part of my issue with the jurors in this, is like, there's no takebacks. So you coming now to say, be like, oh, I made a mistake.
Yeah, I would make a horrible jurist, because I'd be like, I don't believe in death penalty.
Well, and
I don't believe in the justice system. And again, because part of the issue for me is, and Sandru can speak to this. I used to run a juvenile detention center and a juvenile treatment facility, and it was my wish to go into that type of practice. And change lives before they couldn't be changed, right? To impact someone before they became like this hardened criminal. And I'll tell you what, man, my 2 favorite residents were both there for murder, right? And so, and it was interesting that to see these kids, 16, 17, 18 years old, still minors, but to see these kids who have committed these heinous crimes, right, for whatever reason, and when you take someone like that's a child, and I'm going to say anyone under 21, even to 25 in certain extents, is a child. To see when you pull them out of that environment that they were in and put them amongst another group of kids, right? From 8, we had kids there from 10. So from 10 to 18, something magical happened. They became kids again. They became innocent again, right? They didn't have to prove themselves to the streets. Everything they needed was provided for them. And so the analogy I used to, tell my staff is, they've been hunting for whatever reason, right? From necessity, from experience, from tragedy and trauma. They've been doing everything that they can to survive. And we teach people oftentimes how to survive, and we don't teach them how to live. And so what I would tell my staff is, we have taken them out of the woods to teach them not how to hunt, right? But how to, that our whole thing, like teach a man how to fish. So it's like, if we teach them how to fish, we got to show them where the water is. So it's not enough to just teach them how to fish. And so the problem with the justice system is, one, they don't do any rehabilitation.
No.
There's no treatment in most jails and prisons. It is strictly a punishment to lock you away, to prevent any additional behavior from happening, right? And so my psychology peeps will know there's a strict definition of punishment, right? Punishment just means like, I want this immediate thing, like I'm going to do something which is in some cases is almost a retaliation, right? I'm going to do something because you did something.
Sure.
Right. And so there's no restorative piece to it. There's no true justice, right? There's no true paying it back. It is merely a punishment. And so when we talk about, I think this grand idea of we're just housing people. And so my work was meant to try to change and to do some of that rehab. And it worked, you know, for the my two favorite kids that I worked with the whole time I did that kind of work, 10 years doing it. And they were both there for murder, and people were afraid of them. And for good reason, right? This person just killed somebody. And you could see that people weren't really interested in the idea of change for them, and people weren't bought into the idea that they could change.
Right.
From the top to the bottom. And it was just like, and so there's a lot of work that went into, you know, one, working with this kid and, you know, what they thought of themselves after what they had done it. Right. And then you got to work on what other people think of them after they have done it. Right. To see them, like you mentioned, right. And it goes back to what you said. How do we show that God exists, you know, where in these processes that, you know, don't seem very godly, right? You know, and I think it goes back to what I said before, you know, the tragedies happen, but God, you know, reveals himself in those tragedies. And I think we just have to figure out how to take advantage of those opportunities. That was a lot. Sorry.
Yeah. No. It's a lot to talk about. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I want to, you know, pose the question, and it leads to our next topic is how do we as Christians, you know, what can we do in these type of situations? And I think the concept of being redeemable, right? I was just reading this morning, Psalms 107, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. And all of us can say so because we've been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. And I think that redemption is part of the witnessing that we need to share with other people. And that brings us to our next topic of witnessing. And you know, the topic of prisons and witnessing are related, because in both cases of Brandon and Donnie, they were both Adventists, right? So especially in the case of Donnie, he became Adventist after going to prison for murder and getting the death penalty. And, you know, the idea of witnessing to those who seem unredeemable and to give them the hope of the cross is an amazing, you know, it's an amazing feat, right? But the problem is that in general, most people nowadays don't witness, right? There was a stat given in Christianity Today that I came across this week, and it had basically said that 97% of Christians would never share the plan of salvation with an unbeliever. So that means somebody that you know doesn't know about Christ. Most people aren't going to say anything to them. And that's crazy. That's crazy, right? Right? Like, we have the good news, but we're just like, nah, we don't want to.
But is that for real, man? Because I do believe in being a living sacrifice, to be a living testimony,
living epistles. Yeah.
And so, is that really accurate, or is that for real? It's like I just go to church and, you know, and that's just it.
Yeah, and I think the point of that kind of stat is verbally saying something, right? I think we all try to do our best to be living examples, but to actually be like, hey, man, John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world. Like, I don't see a lot of people doing that, right? And for various reasons. But the flip side of that is, on the second stat, is that 90% of those who don't believe in God never are going to come to church. So they're not going to hear it, right? They're not going to come hear a sermon, you know, they're not going to hear I Saw the Little One Part 3 on streaming on Ron Sidney's Facebook page today at 11. You like that? Shout out. They're not going to hear that. But 70% are willing to listen to a Christian talk about their faith.
So that's definitely a big discrepancy. That's definitely a big discrepancy, right? So you got 97% of Christians who will never share the plan of salvation to an unbeliever. So that means there's only 3% of us out here doing the work. And I want to say, again, kind of going back to what we said before about COVID, God has turned this around, right? He's given us the perfect opportunity to spread the gospel, to tell people that Jesus is the way, right?
This is the way.
This is the, and you took it right out of my
This is the way.
Hey, here's an Easter egg for you. I don't know if you peeped the design. Can we show the I saw the child?
I can bring it up. Give me a second.
Yeah. And so like this Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, right? And
yes, he is.
COVID has shown us, like, hey, the building is nothing, right? And I think it kind of goes back to, I was talking to somebody, I don't know if I was talking to you or if I was talking to D Rich, and we was talking about like how, there's an analogy here, and I think about how Christ said he was going to destroy the temple, and look at how those people went crazy, right? Temple destroyed, ripped in two. And it was like, that temple is not where your salvation lies. And I think a lot of people just put too much faith. I don't know if you see the Easter egg here. You see it? You see it? You see it yet?
I don't see it.
Use your eyes, brother. This is the way. Think about it. Think about it. This work inspired. This work was inspired.
We'll come back to that.
But yeah, that's a sidebar. But yeah, man, like, people just put so much emphasis on these buildings, and COVID aside, man, it's tragic, it's horrible. I was a little relieved.
In what way? How so?
I was the part that I could feel relieved about is not playing church. And I mean, that's it, right? The not playing church. Like, I was relieved to not have to go into this place. And almost like you locked it, like going to prison, right?
Yeah.
There's no reform happening, right? There's no rehab happening.
Ooh, talk about it.
We just locking people in a room and expecting what? So we can say happy Sabbath. Yep.
So we can say
I know that's not what you meant to say, Miss Goodwin, but but yes, happy Sabbath. But that's pretty much all you got, right?
Yeah.
And you have where's the transformation that takes place, right? So it's almost like, here's the analogy to our justice system. Our church is the same, and it's not like the Adventist church. It's not just them. It's all these churches for the most part. There are definitely some churches out there doing some great evangelistic work. But for the most part, I would say, yeah. I mean, it's hard to get Christians to come together. So if it's hard to get us to come together on single issues or big issues, how does that look like to people who are non-believers? So I wouldn't want to come to your church either.
Well, yeah, and I think there has to be that desire, that transformation that happens within us to want to share the gospel. And I know for sure I'm guilty of it. I think sometimes, especially the way things are at work and different places and stuff, we tend to have almost a secret agency point of view, and it's like, people aren't like broadcasting their faith until something happens, and like, oh, you Christian too? Yeah, me too. There's not this like, oh, I'm a broadcast my faith, I'm a share it, and not necessarily give someone a Bible study. I think there's appropriate time for that, but I think especially with these tragedies that are happening with COVID, with the death penalty, with racism, I think all of these are kind of opportunities for people. People are wanting to hear, man, what does the Christians have to say, right? Because if you think about it, every time these tragedies happen, right, we're like, what do celebrities have to say? What does Dave Chappelle have to say on the topic, or whoever have to say on the topic? People are looking for guidance, and it's like, we have the greatest guidance in God's word, and we're not taking that opportunity, right? And I think partly is because we haven't been fully transformed, right? There's various reasons.
Well, I mean, the articles talked about why we don't. Said it's hard to start conversations with unbelievers, whether they are strangers or friends. They have a fear of rejection. No one wants to be rejected or have a confrontation, so our fear paralyzes us. There's a lack of Christ compassion. We don't truly care enough. I agree with that. I see that a lot too. Satan doesn't want us to spread the good news, right? And so that anxiety that we feel when we're like, man, here's an opportunity for me to witness. Yo, here's my message. I had a moment myself this week where there was this family, and I didn't catch all the whole interaction, but they had like these carts and carts and carts of stuff. Mm-hmm. And they were in line, and all of a sudden they were gone. And in my mind, I was like, yo, I should probably pay for that. And then I waited too long, right? There was this struggle. And that was a missed opportunity to witness. And and I think we have those, and it doesn't mean that you have to explicitly say, do you believe in Jesus Christ, your Lord and Savior? Have you accepted Jesus Christ into your heart? I don't think it needs to be like that, but it needs to be. And my takeaway from that experience is I can't hesitate, right? Because when something was going wrong, Christ is our example. And, mm-hmm. In every situation where you saw where, people would be doing a thing and he would disappear, they'd be like, yo, where Jesus at? And then it's like, oh, he over there with this prostitute. Like, bro, like, what you doing? It's like,
right. He was out there giving the word.
Right.
Out.
And it's like he acted, right? And I think part of this issue that we run into is to be a Christian is, you got to see it as a verb, not an adjective. Right.
Right.
And it's like, you can't describe yourself as a Christian if you're not acting.
Yeah. And I think for sure that you have to put your faith into action. And, we have a comment here. Sometimes when we hesitate, we talk ourselves out of doing something good. We're all guilty of, overthinking in these situations.
And that's exactly what I did. I was like, well, maybe, and they came back with a bridge card. And I was like, oh man, like, and in my mind, I was like, I missed the opportunity. They could have saved that, and I had, I could have done something to help them further along. Right. It didn't mean I was going to solve their problems. Right. But it was kind of like, and and when people say, thank you, the response is, God bless me, so I want to bless you. Right. Boom.
Exactly.
Done. I missed my opportunity. And I'm like, But I think part of the process has to be too, is to not allow that missed opportunity to kind of push you away, but to remember that experience so that when it happens again, like, I can't hesitate. I need to be
right.
But I think that goes back to those points where it says, because the role of the church, in my opinion, those things that it said in the article of reasons why people don't do it, the church should be working on people so that they can alleviate those barriers, right? We need to work with people. And I'm not a theologian or a pastor or an elder or anything like that, right? I probably got kicked out a long time ago. But I don't have that experience oftentimes where I feel like I'm being equipped. And I think if we're all sinners, just like the person who committed some heinous crime, we've all committed some crime against God. And church should be our prison, which should rehabilitate us so that we can change our lives, go out and be model citizens, but citizens of the kingdom. And I just don't see that happen. And we talked about that yesterday, man. Like some of it is us. Yeah. Some of it is the leadership in the church. Some of it is the entire institution. When you have sermons about movies, or they're not even sermons, right? They're not even sermons. When you have, people in the church who are in leadership roles who do nefarious things. So yeah, absolutely. Those people should be held accountable. And there's also redemption for them as well. But it doesn't necessarily mean that a person who does something crazy should stay in the same role.
Right. And I there's some good comments. There's some good things being discussed here in the comments. about, you know, those people who are on like the 700 Club. Like we were talking about Kenneth Copeland, like doing his Joker laugh for like 10 minutes, and Paula, I forget her name, not Paula Dean, but
and striking.
Yeah. There's, you know, these people. That's what people see, and unfortunately, that's not the witnessing we're talking about, right? And I think it's okay, like Brother Riley is saying, like, you know, we get refueled, you know, when we go to church and when we go to the building, because we're with the saints. It's like being in the huddle, where we get that feeling. We're like, yeah. But what happens is we take that feeling and we stop, right? It becomes just a club. And
but where does it start? Where does it stop? It stops as soon as you walk off some steps.
And that's what I'm saying. It's supposed to energize you, where you're like, boom, I'm ready to tell everybody about God. And I think, I know for me, one of the things looking back at this year is that's one of the things I want to work on is, you know, looking for using those. Thank you. It was Paula White, looking for those examples that I can witness, you know, for, and they're definitely going to come. And I think for me, one of the things that I'm looking to do more is not be so stressed, like with work, right? Like if I'm just as stressed as you, what do I have in my life that's keeping me, you know, peaceful? And I'm trying to put that faith, like you said, into action. And I think, you know, going back to the prison, one of the things I think that we can all do too, especially with those who are in prison, those who may by the society be deemed unredeemable, is to go witness to them. I know Elder Simmons, he, you know, did the prison ministry, and I was able to go a couple of times. And, you know, my dad does prison ministry. But I think in general, you know, those people are unfortunately, you know, forgotten. And, you know, we can't forget about them. You know, they need Jesus. They need access to it. And there's a lot of different ways to, you know, for people to get involved. I know with COVID, it's a little bit different. But I know online I get, it's funny, all of my Instagrams, all these Christian advertisements. So one of the advertisements that always pop up is like, buy Bibles for those behind bars. Like it's a whole program. You can buy a Bible and they can send it to them. You know, and I think there's things like that we can do, and we're not as restricted by COVID as we think. Yeah. And as to your point, COVID actually had made us go in some ways to the next level with online ministries, us starting a podcast, other people starting podcasts, other people doing social media, TikTok videos, and just using their platforms to tell others about Christ. And I think that's really all that we're asking, and God is asking, not just us, not just Chuck and Z, but what God is asking all of us to do as Christians, as Adventists, is to use the tools you have, the platforms you have, the roles you have, use your life to be, you know, a witness, you know, for Christ.
Living sacrifice.
Yes.
Holy and acceptable unto Christ. That's what you're gonna do.
And I hope we don't stop either. I see that in the comments. I hope, you know, we continue to use these ministries, because in the end, like I said, we're trying to wrap this up, right? We're trying to tell everyone about God so that we can go home, right? We want everyone to have the ability to make the choice of whether they want to live for the King or not. And we can't lose sight of that, even with COVID.
It's out there, bro. I'm telling you, man. I want to be a follower of Christ.
I see you out here singing. And
you know what I'm saying? I want to be one of his disciples. Huh? I want to walk in the newness of life. Huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? And so when I go to church, I'm asking questions like, what do I have to do? What do I have to say? How do I have to walk each and every day? You know? And so I'm telling you, bro, I want to be, I'm saying, man, do I have to carry the cross? Huh?
Stop.
What does it cost? You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying. I'm asking a legitimate question. Huh? Mm-hmm. What does it take to be a follower of Christ?
Christ. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And we can't be out here professing. And I think it goes back to, you know, good old Gandhi, right? I like your Christ, but not your Christians.
Yeah. So I want to leave y'all with some practical advice, you know, on witnessing. You know, I think, like you said, we overcomplicate it, but I think if we, we have to be in His Word, right? The more you read God's Word, the more it's just going to come out of you naturally. The more things are going to come to your memory, like, oh yeah, I did read that, and it's going to connect, right? You know, God wired us that way, where things in our life, you know, tend to connect with things we've been,
because it's written on your heart, son.
Exactly.
Written in your heart. It's already there.
So it's just using, and, you know, using the information that you've been given and the experience you've been given. And, you know, they call it a Fort method. I don't remember, maybe some of you other Adventists know out there, but the Fort method of witnessing, you know, talking about, it's acronym, talking about your family with people, talking about your occupation with people, talking about, I think, your recreational activities, things you like, talking about things you do in your spare time. I think that's what it stands for, something like that. But the idea is that those 4 areas are how to start a conversation. And you were talking about that in that article. People don't know how to start a conversation with people about unbelievers. But those areas, your family, your job, the things you like to do in your spare time, that's a common ground, right? People have families, people have jobs.
And I think the other T, which not even about that, but it's like, you know, for me personally, like talking about your testimony, because we all have a testimony. Yeah, your testimony. Right? And so it's like your testimony is the greatest tool you have to witness to somebody else, because there's going to be a time, there's going to be a moment when someone is going to go through something similar to what you went through. And this is how you express true empathy, which is when you can say, oh man, that sucks. I'm sorry that happened to you. I feel so bad. At least you ain't got this going on. But when you can say, you know what, you know, I went through something similar and I know, you know, that's gotta hurt. Right.
Yeah.
You know, this is how I was able to do it. The same thing, you know, I was able to reach a lot of those kids because I was a kid too. I did stupid stuff. And what I would say to them, because people would always try to make this distinction between them, right? Which is, I'm not like them. And I remember someone telling me that, and I was like, how do you figure? You know, the only thing difference between me and them is the fact that I didn't get caught.
Right. That happens in a lot of cases,
right? And so I'm like, you know, because I was running the streets trying to be something that I wasn't, and there were plenty of opportunities for something bad to happen, right? And so, and it didn't, and because it didn't, that's a blessing, right? And I see it as a blessing because, you know, I was one episode away from being locked up too. And so, and then seeing family members being locked up, right? That was God telling me like, hey, you see what just happened, right? Get it together. And so like your life itself as a testimony is your greatest tool to witness. And I encourage you to share your story with somebody. And I guarantee you, it might not immediately change them. And be sure to give credit where credit is due, right? Being that this tragic thing happened. Satan tried to take me out. That's what happened. Tell the truth. Shame the devil, right? Old school, right? Satan tried to take me out. This thing happened. But you know what? God was working on me. And because, you know, he put people in my life, or he put, you know, he allowed this experience to happen, or he allowed me to see this differently, I was then able to do something different. And, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, I'll pray for you that this could happen for you too, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, that'll be end of story, you know, and that's typically how you know, me personally, how I will, you know, my wife will tell me like, bro, you will talk to anybody, won't you? And so I definitely don't have that fear of rejection syndrome, but I know that it exists for a lot of people.
Right. And, you know, that takes me to our final segment before we close, and that's social media mentions, and it's related to this idea of witnessing. There's a page on Instagram called Then God Moved, right? And it's a page dedicated to powerful Christian testimonies from around the world, where people will share their stories and their experiences about God and how they moved. And so if you click on any of the photos of these wonderful people, there's a story behind them. Just like there's a story behind your life, there's a story behind theirs. And they'll go into detail about what happened and how, you know, God moved. And there's all types of, you know, encouraging and lifting stories that talk about how God moved in their lives in various ways. They're not necessarily all miracles. They're sometimes very just day-to-day things, but that God took them out of, or God saved them from. So I encourage you to go check this page out, go be uplifted and encouraged, and hopefully that inspires you to share your faith.
Yes, yes, yes. It's all about sharing. Sharing is caring.
So yeah, man. On that note, man, it's been
I don't
real,
want it
right?
to end. I'm done. I ain't done yet. I'm pretty sure we got no. I ain't done yet.
Dun, 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 dun.
Hey. So, but yeah,
it's been fun, man.
Time to say goodbye.
It is.
And yo, if y'all don't know, I don't know, man. Are we gonna do live shows? I don't think we're doing any more live shows.
Well, yeah, this is in fact our last live show of the year,
right? Because the year is over in 2 weeks. But
it's true.
But
we will be leaving y'all. Yep.
That doesn't mean
go ahead, tell them.
You just want to see us live.
That's right. That's
we want to make it portable, and we're gonna come back fresh, dressed like $1 million come the new year. New hotness.
New hotness. Reminding y'all to not fear the bad news.
Was that my cue?
No, maybe. But we'll still be here next year. You know. Oh man,
you didn't miss the episode. You didn't miss it.
You can
All
always
you gotta do is rewind.
That's it. You can watch it again, of course, on our Facebook page. We will during the holiday season. That's our gift to you. We will be posting these back on the podcast. We have been. We might actually get. We might even be able to do some like daily stuff. I don't know. I take that back. I ain't gonna. I was like, yeah,
maybe,
exactly.
But you might get a little bit more content. How about that?
Yeah, there'll be some more content during this holiday season. Our gift to you, so that you're able to see more of our wonderful face. We're definitely gonna miss y'all. Miss this live interaction that we're seeing.
Absolutely. But we might.
It is a holiday
on a recorded joints. We might. We might step in the comments too. We want to talk.
And that's something we don't get to do. But yeah, it's gonna be a good holiday. I hope all of you guys stay safe. The question is, when will we be back exactly? That's a great question. Exactly.
How about you just keep watching and you'll be surprised? How about that?
We'll keep
we don't want you to go away. We might just pop up. You know what I'm saying? We said not gonna, but we might be like, you know what? No, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it.
But now
next week
should be
is
back.
Christmas.
Next week is Christmas, and the week after is New Year. So we're taking those days off. We hope you spend time with your family, as we'll be doing.
We're actually not taking it off. We still gonna be working on it. We still got stuff for you.
We still got stuff, but we're gonna be taking it down a notch. It's gonna be different. It's gonna be different.
But this is technically what we will consider the end of the first season, right? So we made it. We made it, y'all. 2020, it was a rough one.
It was, but we did it. We did it.
Well, we did it. So
all right, man.
We just got to end the show, man. People. You sure?
Yeah, we got to end the show. Oh, yeah. Everybody ought to know who Jesus is. That's what we out here trying to tell people. Everybody ought to know.
Everybody ought to know. Oh, I'm here for it. So, yes, we just want y'all to remember always, don't fear the bad news.
Keep your mind and heart focused on Christ.
And always trust in the Lord. I will trust in the Lord till I die. I don't know about the clap, bro.
And on that note, we are two Christian brothers, and we are out. Thanks for watching. Y'all be blessed.
Peace. Happy Christmas, Hanukkah.